Hey guys, I'm Seneca. Welcome back to the Green Sofa, where I like to provide a comfortable space for uncomfortable conversations. So, before we get started, round of applause for Miss Halle Bailey, who was selected to play Ariel in The Little Mermaid, the animated classic. And so Disney chose her, which I think is an excellent choice. She's absolutely amazing, beautiful young lady. So they decided to do a live action version of their animated classic, The Little Mermaid, and Halle Bailey was selected. So if you know anything about her, she is one of the Grammy-nominated sister duo, Chloe and Halle. Both of these young ladies have amazing voices. They were discovered by my third ward homie, Beyonce. Thank you, Beyonce. You're the real MVP. And it has been a lot of controversy around them choosing this beautiful lock goddess to play the mermaid. So I want to dive a little bit into this controversy, what I've been hearing over the last couple of weeks, which has been very disturbing. I think this is an excellent choice for a Little Mermaid, rightfully so. She's extremely talented. Her vocal range is amazing. I mean, I don't see what the problem is. So when I started to see all of the derogatory comments and all of the negative images being displayed on social media, the first thing I was thinking was, I don't get it. Like, what is the problem? Why are people, more particularly white people, having such an issue with them choosing this young, talented girl to be the mermaid? And so when I think about it, because, I am an analog girl living in a digital world, right? It took me about 2.7 seconds to process all of this BS before coming to the conclusion that this has nothing to do with her talent. This is all about race, right? All of the blatant vitriol, this unwarranted indignation, all of these silly comments have nothing to do with the fact that this girl is talented. She's beautiful. Her vocal range is amazing. It has everything to do with the fact that she is a huge disruption to Americanism, right? She is a disruption to racism. She is a disruption to discrimination. She is a disruption to the stereotypes that we always see portrayed in the media, right? So for a black girl in Hollywood not to be portrayed as some crackhead, some baby mama, some addict, or, promiscuous and loud and boisterous and overtly masculine. Like, people are unnerved by this. And it's kind of funny. I just don't get it because, like I said, this woman is extremely talented. This young girl, I think she's, 19 years old. People, get over yourselves. Like, let this girl have her moment. I was watching a YouTube video pretty recently by Emory University, and it was called White Rage, the Unspoken Truth of Our Nation's Divide. And I always read the comment section. I'm always thrilled, and I love to read what people say. And so in the comment section, there was a young lady named Ruth Walker who said, "When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression." Now let that sink in for a minute. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. So what we have here is, when you're always considered for certain roles, when you have the luxury of being considered for roles that white women, white men are always considered for, when you have that luxury, it's hard for you to empathize and sympathize with why representation and imagery is so important. I feel like it's highly important. I believe that representation is important. Young black boys, young black girls need to be able to see themselves in movies, in theaters, in film, in government, in politics, in sports, in music, in dance, whatever the case may be. Representation is so important. And not only that, but I know this is going to shock a lot of people, especially you poor unfortunate souls who are tweeting, not my Ariel and all of this crap. This is probably going to hit you really hard in the gut, but I'm all about speaking my truth. So here we go. The Little Mermaid is not real. How about that? It is fiction. It is fiction. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the mermaid is not real. So anybody can play the mermaid. I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, fuchsia. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anybody can play her. There was one person, one poor little soul, who even commented, you know, that it was messing up their childhood memories, and, you know, and Ariel had red hair. Well, public service announcement, people, like, some black people actually have red hair. I mean, I have a cousin who is, you know, she has fair skin, green eyes, and blonde hair, right? I have cousins with blue eyes. I mean, if you take a look, listen, just take a look around Houston. We're the most diverse city in the nation. Take a look around. Like, black people come in all shades, all hues, all sizes, all textures of hair, all of that. Like, so to think that the mermaid could only be this one thing is really disturbing. So what I want to convey to these poor, unfortunate souls who have this white supremacist, entitled attitude is this. Nothing. Because this conversation is not about you. This is about how amazing black people are and always have been. And so I really want to focus on that today, because I feel like I've already given too much energy to this negativity and I don't want to anymore. So I'm going to talk about how awesome black people are. Now, just for the record, I've never seen a mermaid. And let me tell you, if you know anything about me, I'm a researcher. I do my homework. And I have skinny dipped in nearly every ocean on this continent, okay? I've been to beaches in South Africa, India, South America, Asia, Canada, Europe, like you name it, I've been there. Listen, I've scuba dived, I have snorkeled in Cozumel, in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Trinidad and Tobago, Bermuda, the Dominican Republic. Listen, I've even been under the sea in Jamaica. And not once did I see a red patois-speaking crab named Horatio Thelonious Ignatius Crustaceus Sebastian. I'm pretty sure you didn't even know that was his name, but it is. So listen, I've been under the sea in Jamaica and I didn't see any patois-speaking red crabs named Sebastian who could even lead me to Ariel. So I have to come to the conclusion, after doing so much research all over the continent, that mermaids aren't real. And so guess what? Because they aren't real, anybody can play a mermaid. So I just wanted that to be known. But you know, but when you've been living in this fairy tale world where you've had everything handed to you and you feel entitled and you feel like that black is whack and white ice is colder, then I could see how you would have such a problem with this. But guess what? It is what it is. This young lady is extremely talented and we are celebrating her. Thank you, Miss Halle Bailey. You're going to do amazing and I can't wait to see it. So we're just going to keep on celebrating her. One thing I want you guys to understand, there is an African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write, the story will always glorify the hunter. Well, what do you mean by that, Seneca? It means that until we learn to take ownership of our own story, until we learn how to tell our own story, until we learn how to narrate, to navigate, to speak our own truth, to tell our own story, we will continue to be subject, right? To be in bondage to the negative opinions and these created social constructs and storylines that other people have created for us. And you know what? I'm not interested in doing that. Abdicating my responsibilities and my voice to someone else just does not benefit me or anyone else. And I feel like we have a social responsibility to ourselves to tell our own stories. We don't have to wait for anybody to tell our stories. And when I think about that, you know, America, these Americas, was built on that, right? It's built on propaganda. It's built on lies. It's built on capitalism. You know, without racism, there is no America. Without discrimination, there is no America. And without stereotypes, there is no America. Without black people, without black culture, right? There is no America. We are the curators of culture. We are the inventors of almost everything. So I dare you to try to go a day without using a black invention. I promise you, you won't be able to do it. You have no idea how influential, how providential blacks have been in this country, right? And until you know that, and I'm here to tell you today, it won't make any sense to you. So let's just dive right in. One of the things I hate to see, you know, I'm sure you guys growing up, you always saw these commercials, and they always seem to come on late at night for some reason, right? 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You have this commercial comes on, and it's like this really sad music, and then it's like this middle-aged white woman who comes on, and she's surrounded by like, all these little children who are malnutrition, and she's like, you know what? For only 5 cents a day, you can help feed a family of 35 million for 17 years. Yeah, no, doesn't happen. You know what? And because you continue to see that imagery, because you continue to see that day in and day out, you think that is all of Africa. You think that's what Africa is. And guess what? I'm guilty of that as well. Before I stepped on the continent of Africa, I remember thinking, oh my God, Africa must be this poor, depraved, destitute place where it's ravished with disease, everybody's starving, everybody's living in huts, everybody's walking on foot, or they're still riding camels, or whatever the case may be, right? I thought the same thing until I stepped on the continent for myself. And so that's why I always tell people, you know, don't believe what you hear and see always in the media, right? Do your own homework, do your own research, get out there and see it for yourself. So when I stepped on the continent of Africa for the very first time, I was perplexed. I was elated, but I was also mad because I just remember thinking like, where's the little boy who's starving, right? Nobody had shown me all of these mansions. Nobody told me about all these majestic, beautiful vineyards and people rolling around in Rolls Royce and Bentleys and Mercedes Benz and all these expensive cars. Nobody ever told me the water was so blue. Right? You know, I'm always used to seeing all of these commercials about how dirty the water is, and then I see these crystal blue seas. Nobody told me about that, you know, and that's not the image that they were portraying in the media, clearly. And so it was a rude awakening for me, right? I was living with the stereotype that Africa was this place that it was not. And let me tell you something. It's not that stereotypes are untrue. It's that they are incomplete. They do not tell the whole story. One of the most important lessons that I've learned in my life, especially in academia, is that when you raise the level of expectation, when you raise the bar, when you raise the standards, people will naturally rise to the occasion. I know that, you know, just being in academia and being a teacher myself, right? I didn't set the bar low for my students. I set the bar high because I knew if I equipped them with all the tools, the resources, and everything they needed to be successful, that they would naturally rise to the occasion. So when we keep on putting these negative imageries out there, right? You seem to stay at this little baseline, right? And you never rise above that. So going to see Africa for the very first time for me was raising the bar, raising my expectation, raising the standards, and seeing something that I had never seen before. You know, when you consistently and persistently marginalize and regulate individuals to this second-class citizenship, this less than, you know, I'm better than you, then a lot of times they will stay there, right? They will become that. If that's all you hear, if that's all you know, then a lot of times people don't break those boundaries. But when you are exposed to more things, when you see more things, then it opens you up to a whole new world. And that's why representation is so important. So this thing about Ariel is more than just, you know, a young black girl getting this role. This is about imagery and representation. When you are able to see yourself as a thing, I don't care what that thing is, it makes a world of difference. I remember before I became an international speaker, I imagined myself, I saw myself as an international speaker before I ever left the country. Let me tell you, in 2016, I remember writing on my vision wall, because I didn't even have a vision board, that was too small. I needed a vision wall, so I wrote on my vision wall that I would be an international speaker. Now, I wrote this in January. By the end of July, I was taking a trip to South Africa, doing my very first international speaking engagement. Literally 7 months later, not 7 years later, I wrote it in January, and I was on stage in South Africa 7 months later. Do you see what I'm saying? And it wasn't just because of me completely. It's because I saw other women in those roles. I saw the Lisa Nichols, I saw the Michelle Obamas, I saw the Lupita Nyong'o, who is, oh my God, absolutely amazing. I love her. And one of my favorite authors, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I love her. You know, if you are a TED Talk kind of girl like me, or a TED Talk kind of guy, I would love for you to go watch her TED Talk. And it's called The Danger of a Single Story, right? So she talks about, you know, growing up in Nigeria, and here she is, this young, vibrant, coming up in a well-to-do family. And of course, she was a writer very young, so she's writing out these stories. And of course, most of the people in her story were blonde hair and blue eyes, because of course, that's all she was seeing coming through her TV screens, right? And so when people ask silly questions about why representation is so important, that's why it's important, right? Because you need to see that there is more out there than just what's being portrayed, right? That you indeed can be that person as well. I don't care what that person is, right? If you want to be in film and TV, if you want to be a basketball player, whatever the case may be, representation is important. Children need to be able to see themselves in these spots, right? In government, in education, whatever the case may be. Apart from us, there is no narrative. I just want to tell you that, right? Black people, we are the narrative. There is no America without Black people. There is no, you know, you name it, without Black people. And so we are very important, super important. So, when I think about Black people, I think about all the amazing things we've done, and we've done some pretty awesome and amazing things. One thing, you know, you can't talk about military might without talking about people like King Hannibal, Shaka Zulu, right? So our trajectory, our start did not start with slavery, okay? It did not start with us coming through the Middle Passage and as slaves. I know that's what they want you to believe, but that is false, okay? Before coming over, we were doing amazing things, okay? If you've ever heard of Hannibal, and I know most of you haven't, you probably heard of, you know, King Shaka Zulu, who was a mighty warrior, just a brilliant man. His military tactics were amazing, and like literally you can't have a conversation about those things without mentioning people like him. Did you know that Hannibal's military tactics are still being taught at places like West Point to this day? But I'm sure they're not telling you that. You can't talk about politics without talking about Queen Amina or Queen Nzinga. Look those people up, okay? Known for their political and diplomatic acumen. I mean, fierce and anti-colonial warriors. You can't have a conversation about politics without them, and a lot of times those people are being left out of the conversation, and these are people you need to know about. You need to know where you got your start from, and it did not start with slavery. You can't talk about riches and wealth without talking about Mansa Musa. And when I ask people that, literally, if I ask 100 people today, I might meet 5 or 10 who know who Mansa Musa is. Mansa Musa was the richest man, the richest person in history, worth $400 billion, ruled the Mali Empire, which is now modern day Ghana, right? Had established all kind of trade routes and things like that. I mean, had so much money that when he was doing a pilgrimage, I mean, he was giving money to the poor. I mean, their economy crashed, right? They went into a huge depression because he was giving away so much money and the value of gold was going down, right? Just, I mean, had so much gold, it was ridiculous. Listen, you can't talk about education without talking about the University of Sankore. What is the University of Sankore? It's not Harvard, okay? So education didn't start with Harvard. I know that it started, you know, university started then with Harvard in what, 1636 here in the U.S. But universities had already been established centuries before in the continent of Africa. So you need to know that, people. Listen, I was reading lately, and there's a gentleman named Silas Adekunle, right? He is the highest paid robotics engineer in the world. The boy is only 27 years old. Oh my God. And fine as hell, may I add. Silas Adekunle, look him up. The highest paid robotics engineer. He is now a CEO, owns his own company, has already cut a deal with Apple. But these are not the people you are hearing about. And these are people that you need to hear about. One of the reasons why I love Beyonce so much, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, she already makes amazing music. She's married to an amazing man and I mean, together they're just doing amazing things, right? They have beautiful children. But one of the things I love about Beyonce is how she is so pro-Black. If you've ever been to a Beyonce show, especially now, because I feel like she's really coming to herself. I've seen her years before at the Essence Festival in New Orleans. But when I tell you, and I mean, her shows were brilliant back then. But when I see her now, oh my God, a whole nother level. So listen, last year I got flued out. All my ratchet friends will understand what that means. I got flued out. So anyway, me and a friend, Jason, met up in Miami last year to go see the On the Run tour with Beyonce and Jay-Z. Breathtaking. Listen, best concert I had ever seen. Incredible. Everybody on that stage was Black. The musicians were Black. You know, the drummers were Black. The guitarists were Black. The dancers were Black. You know, the stage crew was Black. Like everything. It was just a sea of incredible, gorgeous Blackness. I think I might have seen one white girl on stage. I'm not exactly sure because, you know, we come in all kind of colors. So it could have been light-skinned chick. I'm not exactly sure. And I know Beyonce is probably an equal opportunity employer, but that's not the point here. The point is, it was so refreshing to see Beyonce on stage with all these individuals, right? Because when you see white people being plastered all over your screen, nobody's like, oh man, why are they all white, right? Nobody's asking them that question. And so when I got there, I was like, man, this is such a beautiful thing that we are seeing so much representation, so much representation. And it's just, it's so important. Gosh, one of the things I also wanted to mention is that Ariel is a Hebrew name, which means lioness of God. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I might want to name one of my children one day Ariel, because that's powerful. And if you know anything about lions, they are native to Africa. There's some in Asia as well, but you find lions in Africa. So don't get it twisted, people. But listen, I'm so excited for this young girl, Halle Bailey. I'm so excited for this discussion because it's a discussion that needs to be had. And we need to have these discussions more openly and honestly and more frequently. For this young Black girl to be cast as Ariel, this animated classic, which has been in recent times relegated and, you know, only white faces chosen for these positions, the world is changing. I just want you to know that the world is really changing. If you notice, Black and brown people are starting to procreate even more, and the majority is now starting to become the minority, and the minority the majority, and it's just a fact of life, and it is what it is. So I can see why people are in such an uproar about this young, talented Black girl being the Ariel. But guess what? She is qualified. She is talented. She seems like an incredible human being. I can't wait to meet her. She's on my bucket list of people to meet, and I know that I will. So live with it. Live with it. Listen, mermaids are not real. These are fictional characters. So the fact that you're wasting all this time and energy into, you know, expressing your dislike that this is a black woman who's playing this role, nobody cares because it's a whole new world. If I could sing, listen, I would sing this song for you guys. But guess what? It's a whole new world, and we are celebrating blackness right now. It is a beautiful thing. So I'm so glad for Ariel. Being a black girl. It's a beautiful thing. But guess what? This is just the way of the world, and this is how things are transpiring. Again, I'm going to tell you the African proverb again. Until the lion learns how to write, the story will always glorify the hunter. So I want to leave you with this. Start writing your own story. Scripting your own characters. You don't have to wait for the approval or the permission of anybody else to narrate your own story. I hope you guys have an amazing time. I guess I will see you next time on the green sofa. See you later.